Hey guys, this is Jeff from New Horizons, and after a grueling weekend of Flesh and Blood, we now have a little bit of a Snats video for you. So, I want to go over some of the changes that we made right before Nats, some little tweaks that we did here and there, and some stuff that we thought that needed to be changed, as well as just overall our weekend and what happened, and just go through all those details as finally as we can so that you guys can get ready for your Nats in the next week or so. I believe there's another week this week and then one more, but I could be wrong. There might be a third. So, to go over some of the basic changes that we made to the version 3 list, which is the one that's kind of been floating around. This is the pretty much final pre-Nats list. We decided to change and take out a heat seeker in exchange for a infecting shot, just to kind of increase the aggro, because we noticed that heat seeker is kind of losing its fidelity about number 3. And usually the plays that we made where we shot the first one, sometimes the second one, and usually blocked with the third one, because at that time we usually gave up New Horizons or something like that. And usually any other time that we try to fire it, it was typically from a codex. That's if we didn't really need tempo play, or we had enough laces on top of it that we didn't really need damage, or it was just only arrow. It was still good for like a double arsenal off of codex, so worked out pretty good. I didn't really feel it. None of us really felt it. It didn't really miss the third heat seeker, so I think 2 is fine, and increasing the density of infecting shot and on hits is pretty good. We really didn't change anything else from the core list. We just changed some of the fundamental matchups. So, for example, after some talking and some testing, we changed. Not entirely sure exactly everything, but we did some like small changes into the sideboarding. Main ones were updating what Stonewall was good for. We brought it in against Azalea, and it worked really well. We brought it in against Bolton. It's really funny against Bolton. You can snuff one of their potential sources of go again through their hero ability, so you can like block with a non-attack, or you can just block with this straight up and just say it doesn't have higher power, so that's funny. Matchup was already favored, but this made it particularly closer to a 90-10, if not an almost auto buy. Then we have, obviously, we ran into Zen. Still unsure whether or not it's correct to run into Fire Katsu, so we kind of just didn't test it because I didn't expect to see a Fire Katsu, and even if I did, the normal game plan was perfectly fine. So I didn't really tempt fate. The last one that we ran it in was, ironically, the Mirror. I'm still unsure on how good this is, but in the Mirror, since you run Dreadbore, technically does turn off the play patterns of using Bolt and Shot, and if they have Bullseye Braces, it turns off those play patterns, so they have to use a buff. I am still unconfirmed on whether or not it works, but it's not a negative change. Take that with a grain of salt. We also updated the mirror match just a little bit, just to kind of trim it down a little bit more so that it was more optimized. But that's pretty much all the changes that we did. So my experience throughout the weekend was very negative. I ended up getting the short end of the stick this weekend for the group. There was 4 of us that ran the same exact list. It was Wet System, or Thomas, who is now a new member of New Horizons. We'll do some intro with him later at some point. The Mage Master, which is the Shadow Child. You'll hear from him in a little bit. Me and our friend Nick, who kind of tagged along for a cool little part of the guys moment. And he actually did not too bad, considering that I don't think he had a huge amount of reps in both draft and on Riptide. He had a decent amount, so he was able to be a little competent, but he beat Brody. That was kind of wild. came out of left field for us on day one. So that was really nice. So on to my actual rounds. So in nationals, I went round one against a Zen. I got demolished. It wasn't even really close. Just nothing lined up. It didn't really work out well at all. Then I faced a Dash who decided to go boost dash against me. And unfortunately, I suffered in the scenario of, well, I fat dashed because that's the game plan. I ran Dreadboard because that's the game plan, because you have to make your statistics as correct as possible, but he loaded up Pounder, which immediately puts me on the back foot. Things have to line up well, and as long as you weather the storm, you should be fine. However, he was able to play pretty much every one of his Tekla cores. He was able to. He had a red pretty much every turn cycle, like his reds, and sending them all there. Never really hit them off of the banish or anything. It was all blues. And he max V'd me 3 times. That was rough. Ironically, I would have survived through the storm because the last turn of the game I was going. I think I went to like -2 or 3 or something like that. Throughout the game, I had drawn all 3 of our no blocks. Only 3 of them, in like the top half of the deck, which was super unfortunate. And if I literally drew just 2 blocks instead, or 1 3 block, a 2 block, or something in that nature, and was able to prevent the damage and survive through that one big turn cycle he had, I firmly believe I would have won that game on fatigue, because he was getting to like less than 10 cards left in deck. So he was starting to hit his blues. That one sucked, but it's Dash. It happens. It feels bad, but it happens. And then just got rolled by a KO. When Brute does Brute things, Brute does Brute things. That's it. And then round 4, I got paired into Phenoblack on Enigma. I won that, but it was a really, really, really fun match. Like, we both had really weird hands, and we are just laughing about it. And we both know we were pretty much out of it at that point. He's a great guy. Never had a single bad interaction with him, so it was a good time. Which, after getting the beating in the last 3 rounds, was a nice little change of pace. I won that, so technically ended up going 1-3 during that day. Didn't do draft because I was like, okay, I have to realistically 3-0 draft twice, and statistically speaking, at least one of them I should get a 2-1, even if I'm like a god tier player. That's just the odds. The unfortunate thing is that you only get the regular pack, so you don't get the stamp pack, so I kind of missed out on that. But I wanted to drop into the Flick Flack event and just kind of relax a little because, I had a pretty negative day overall. Going into calling day 2, or calling day 1, I started the games pretty well. There was really nothing to say about the first 3 games. I won them all. I was above 15 life, and it was against, I can't remember if it was 2 Zen and a KO, or 2 KO and a Zen. My memory's a little foggy there, but there's nothing really to say. It just went very much in my favor, very much did well. Good games. And it started to go downhill from there. I started hitting another Zen, another KO, 5, a Kano, and then a new. The other Zen, the other KO, and of course the Kano absolutely demolished me. After being 3-0, I immediately got humbled to hell. That Kano game was horrible. I got put down from 32 to, I don't even remember what negatives, on turn 1. So they turn 0, turn 1 me. I swung an attack, I got put to 1, and then they immediately the turn after just killed me, and I was like, that's cool. And then I faced a new in the final game. It was a really close game, but it was kind of obnoxious because I being put on the back foot really, really hard, and there was nothing I could do during the game. And whenever I did pick back up tempo, he just had exactly everything that needed to happen. It was just I got dealt 7 damage on turn 0 by Anu. Like I don't know what to tell you. I just did not win the game. I could not recover. And after all that, I decided, okay, this is just not the weekend for me. And I was convinced by Thomas to just kind of take it easy, not do the battle harden, just not going well, take a break. So I ended up playing the team, or just the regular sealed event, and then I played the Oasis event for a round, just to kind of play something, and then joined Thomas afterwards whenever he knew he was out of the battle hardened into Team Sealed, and I had a blast. Probably one of the funnest things I ever did. And I didn't really think that there was anything personally that I could change, but also my data was not great. So I don't know what we could change on the list. We had talked about Chains of Eminence. It's not on here. But we talked about Chains of Eminence, but we didn't have enough time to properly test it, so we opted just not to put it in. These didn't really do anything. And as much as I love them, it's just the meta doesn't really help with it too much. So we're just probably going to end up cutting these for something to increase the matchup percentage against Zen, or to just kind of tackle the meta a little bit more. We'll keep you up to date and try to post the list before Nats. Hopefully, we can get out as soon as possible, or for Nats this weekend. Thomas, unfortunately, is currently, or what the system is currently at vacation with his family. So he gave me his notes that he written up for his podcast, just so that way I can give you guys a general idea of his thoughts of the weekend. So I'm going to read it pretty much verbatim. And actually, here. So he said the deck still had a strong advantage in early rounds to people who do not understand Riptide, similar to how people struggle with the World Warrior first. This even affects the high-level players who haven't really acknowledged the matchup. I also saw that a lot of people didn't really know what things did. The matchups we knew were strong going into the tournament held true. The deck is especially strong into Enigma and new with good spread to everything but Kano. Both my Kano matches were very close and probably would have been wins in pre-Kindle Kano. Overall, good sign the aggro potential of the deck. Experience into Victor is only slightly unfavored, not heavily. Experience into Azalea is only slightly unfavored, not heavily. Straight up favored if we get Buzzsaw Trap. So essentially, what he's saying is, if we don't see Buzzsaw Trap, it becomes really hairy. But the moment we see Buzzsaw Trap, it goes to like 60%. Whenever we did the meta thing, then it was pretty much just average out into assuming you see Buzzsaw Trap, because we're running a flat 60. It's pretty easy to get to that point. Stonewall helped us get to that point a lot more. My one match into Max showed us that the matchup is dangerous for Riptide. If Max arsenals a very early Mechanoid and we can't inertia or seek it out, if this matchup gets more popular, I could see potentially adding more cards to the deck to target it if possible. Zen is unfavored, however, I don't think this is a problem with Riptide, but a problem with Zen being a bit overtuned. If you're not excessively disruptive like New Prism, then you will struggle. Try not to Buzzsaw collapsing into New until you know it has a big effect on their match outcome, because her playing it from Banished is really powerful. Other than that, it's a free matchup. Like he was saying, the Pendulum Trap was nearly useless. The trap felt like a waste of deck space, and I think that more cards targeted Zen matchup would improve the deck dramatically. I didn't particularly think it was a waste, but I also understand that the percentage that it adds into some of the other decks is negligible in comparison to the sheer amount of Zens and other matchups that you'll see. So putting that percentage into those matchups that don't really favor it too much really didn't matter. So I would agree with that. Stonewalls were critical. They are an excellent card into Ninja and Azalea. We only really tested into Zen, and yeah, we tested into Azalea. Release Attention seems excessive with Dreadbore and Remorseless to be better as a third Lace of Frailty or some other tech card. If Zuri and Bravo get really popular again, I can see it come back. Not needed for Nuke, especially since she'll die to her non-blocks eventually. I can see that. We'll look into that a little bit too as well. I kind of felt the same, but I also like it. But at the same time, it doesn't. It only matters when it's like really fringe cases. It's a weird card. Death Dealer is a low performer in my opinion. Is too luck based on the draw is useful if the draw on whether the draw is useful for Riptide or not. However, there isn't really anything better. See, cutting and always running Dreadbore, but then it did occasionally let me high roll. Death Dealer is basically the only way that Riptide does have a high roll into some of those aggro matchups, and it can guarantee an arsenal in a lot of cases. And sometimes it can let you just blow people out. If there's a better option, we would be using. Cards that can be considered for the meta to improve some of the problems with the deck. Sigil, we saw a lot of Sigil in that weekend. There's that one Riptide list that ran it against Josh Lau. As a great counter to Rhythm Ledger and Warmongers lets us utilize our hand fully instead of just kind of breaking. Spellfray Tiara, the Kingdom matchup is actually pretty close and gives us 5+ life on the go turn. Horizon isn't very useful in the matchup anyways. That's kind of fair. Oasis, the Kano problem, one of the deck few opportunities to high roll the matchup or make the Kano second guess his turn if he sees it pitched. That's fair. And the main one I was talking about before was Chance of Eminence. Card needs to be tested versus Zen. Considering he's probably going to be a very large part of the meta, the arcade cards in the deck seem fine. If you can play the card and either call Crouching Tiger or in your cheat, depending on what is more relevant. If the Zen ever transcends or uses Traverse and you chains his energy, not only can he not pitch it, but he can't arsenal it because it's worthless. And junking his entire hand and giving you space to win the game. Even Solitula and Arrow, which is not terrible because it does have Go again. It's definitely worth testing. It could also do well against Mechanoid by delaying it a potential turn. There's a couple weird matchups that it would be good in, but that's like such a weird card and it requires a lot of meta knowledge and a lot of like foresight. And for lack of a better way to put it, soul reading. His overall final thoughts are that it's a very good deck and extremely fun to play. However, it can be a bit slow even when the deck is aggro focused. So we can be weak to combo setup decks like Kano, Zen, and Max, and it has some good interaction and powerful counters if you draw them at the right time and sequence. So overall, he did pretty good. He went 3-1 in the National CC Day 1. He did very well and 3-0'd the draft portion. The second draft and day 2, I don't remember exactly how well he did. I think he did 1-2 or 2-1 in the draft. And then CC, he ended up doing not too hot. He got some pretty bad matchups. But namely the two Kanos, I believe. All right, guys, we'll go ahead and segue into the next little bit with Mage Master, which you may know on the channel a little bit. He is the original designer of the list, and he went to Nationals this weekend, doing pretty damn well. He played in the Nationals and the Battle Hard. He has a little bit of a rundown on his weekend. Good.
I went 9-5 at Nationals. Went 6-2 in CC and 3-3 in draft. My first round was against a KO. There wasn't too much to say about that game. I just outvalued them through like a bunch of turn cycles and presenting a bunch of on hits, kept on giving them inertias so they couldn't play any big turns. The second game was just a normal game. I guess the second KO, which was my round 2, He didn't flip over Savage, he actually flipped over Tunic. So the game ended quicker because he ran out of armor a lot quicker. My opinion on that matchup is when the KO runs out of armor, the matchup shifts in our favor because they can't stop our breakpoints because the whole deck's basically breakpoints. Round 3, I played against a Prism. I got hit. On turn 0, they played a Pierce Reality, and then I didn't have the good of a hand. I threw like 6 at them with like a Remorseless or something, and then they threw back Erudition for 7, and my hand did not block. It was just 4 pumps and a sleep dart. So I couldn't block another Herald, so I took it. I took like 18 or something, and I threw back a sleep dart for 14. Luckily, their hand didn't block, so I gave them 2 Blood Rots and an Inertia. And that's where the game turned. They threw 2 more Eruditions for the next over the next 3 turns, but I had Tar Pits for both of them. I ended up clutching out the game with some very timely go wide arrows. Round 4 was against a new. The game went on for like 15 minutes or so, and I decked them. Dreadboard's a good card. Just want to put that out there.
Unfortunately, the draft didn't go too well, so day 1.
No, I couldn't read my cards in round 1, and that cost me a lot. I did, however, manage to clutch out a win on the last draft of the day, but my Zen deck wasn't that great to begin with. Day 2. I started off. My round 1 opponent after the draft was a Prism.
Oh yeah, the
3
the draft in day 2 you did a little bit
Yeah,
better,
I did
right?
want it. Yeah, the draft in day 2 I went 2-1. I drafted a really good Enigma deck, and then I died to the 3rd round against the new who played 3 pick to pieces, 1 through 3, and I died. Which it happens. It's fine. Round 1 of CC, I played against a Prism. They cast 3 Arclight Sentinels and like 2 Genesises in the span of like 4 to 5 turns. I was just unwinnable. It's a non-game. It was fine though. Prism does that sometimes. The round after that, round 2 of day 2 for CC, I played against a Hexagore Levia. That game ended up way too close. It was 1-1 when the game ended. The game was very grueling because of there was a Blood Rush that dealt me like 25 damage. I was very worried about that at the point in the game, but I managed to kill him with a tar pit trap when he made an agility with an agile windup. On the end of my turn, he went to his turn, and Swung Hexagore would go again, and I got him with a timely tar pit. That's how that game ended. That was a pretty close game. Round 3 of CC, I played against Kano. This was like a 2 to 3 turn game. I presented lethal to him, and I was at 29 with 2 floating and an AB2. And he managed to just deal more than my life total. The Wildfire and his top decks panned out pretty nicely.
Can't really do too
Not much.
much about the Kano.
It was like 2 to 3 turns. My hands were kind of crazy, aggro wise. And then I played into Slab Dash in round 4. We knew it was going to take a really long time to play this game, so we both played really fast. The game did take like a really long time, and I ended up decking him. Well, not truly decking him. He had like 7 cards left in his deck, but most of them were defense reactions. Or 7 to 10 cards. Yeah, but he had a bunch of defense reactions left in his deck, and I threw an endless arrow at him, and he just none of the cards in his hand blocked, so he lost. It was a good game. That was it for nationals.
What'd you end up placing? Do you remember?
55th.
That's not bad, especially considering how bad the day 1's draft ended up being. But in CC, you still went 6-2, losing to a really bad matchup and then a unfortunate situation with Prism, which is pretty good. What about the Battle Harden?
Battle Hardened, round 1. I don't remember the exact order of these. I remember some of them. Round 1, I played against Michael Hamilton on Enigma. I was playing Riptide again. The game ended pretty quickly, I like to think. Um, I just kept presenting a bunch of damage, and you can't really. He didn't swing his auras a lot. I think he was playing around traps, but every time he did that, I had like pump bolt and shot into thing. So it was just a lot of damage from me. There was one time he spectral manifestationed into a 10k, and I was like, I need to remove that. So I threw an E-strike at him. I bullseyed in a Murkmire, fired it, snapped it, and codexed in another Murkmire, and that cleared his whole board. And that was pretty much the turning point of the game. It was hard to catch up from there because he had burnt armor to try to protect the 10k.
Ooh.
And then after that, I don't remember the order after that.
As a reminder, that Battle Hardened was 9 rounds, right?
Yeah, that battle was 9 rounds. Oh, I
It was
actually do remember the next round. The next round was Zen. That game got really close. I won the game at 3 life. Luckily his go turn wasn't as impressive as it should have been. Stonewall Gauntlets blocked for 4 to 5, I think, in that matchup, and they like saved me from losing the game. We got to an in-game board state where we're both at like very low life totals, and Riptide does really good in those situations because of traps, so I clutched it out there. Round 3 was another Zen. I got dumpstered. It was like
What happened there?
it was like triple bonds into double bonds, and he hadn't blocked with headpiece yet. And then he played another double bonds into another bonds line, and I was like, okay, I guess just wasn't meant to win this one. And that happened. Round 4 was against Arachne.
I do remember you telling
Uh,
me about this, and I was genuinely shocked that there was an Arachne at
he was
2-1.
a pretty good Arachne player. The game went down to fatigue. I had about 10 cards left when he decked himself. The game was pretty grueling. I was behind for about a quarter of the game. I'm usually never down any against an Arachne, but he was really good. Um, uh, I think he took a lot of damage at one point because I had a ponder token and I threw a really big arrow, and it was like an infecting shot, but the rabble revealed a rain razors, and he didn't want to give me a 5-card hand with a rain razors in my arsenal, which is fine. I think that's agreeable. So he took a lot of damage to throw back something, and I had traps. I drew traps in that hand, and he just got blown out, and I took the lead. This is where I forget all the other orders. I played against 2 KOs, I think, and those games weren't really. They were just. I don't think any of the KO games are that exciting. There's nothing really crazy that happens in them. One of the KO games that happened in the later rounds, I got cast bones 3 times in the game, which made me worried. I won because on one of the times cast bones I had a buzzsaw trap. That was pretty good. I got pretty lucky there. And then I played against another new. He was very aggressively not blocking to throw like a bonds at me or a persuasive, and he like pumped it really high, and I buzzsawed it. And that's basically where the game ended. It didn't help that a turn later I collapsing him as well. So I drew both of the legendary traps at like the best times you could draw them. The game was basically uh, it was rough. And then I played against 2 more Zens. I beat the final Zen of the day, but the Zen in round 8, he played 2 Ancestral Harmonies. My bad. He played 2 Art of Wars, did a really wide turn, put me to like 18 or something, 18, 19. And then he played Double Harmony and hit double Descendant Gust Wave, and I died on the spot. That's how the battle hard went. Ended up 7-2. I bubbled out at 12th.
To be fair though, was the Battle Hardened the one where there was like 3 Kanos in the top 8? Or was that the
I don't
cloud?
know. I remember a Kano won the battle hardened, so I know there was one Kano in the top 8.
Is there anything that you think could have been changed?
Not really. I think if we want to change the deck for Zen, we'll have to restructure the deck.
I know Wet or Thomas, however you know him, was talking about cutting certain cards like Pendulum Trap.
Yeah. Our
And
dash it's mainly for dash and like assassin is what Pendulum Trap is there for. If we wanted to focus more on like Zen and Azalea, we would
was
definitely cut those cards.
I was thinking cutting 1 is probably not too terrible, but I can see it. Oh, it was the calling that had the 3 Kanos. There was 5 Zens in the CC.
Yep. That I do know that there were a bunch of Zens in the top 8 because I went to go look at the top 8 table to guess my round 9 opponent, and it was just like a bunch of Zens, and I was like,
5 Zen, a Prism, an Enigma, and a Kano. That was a grueling battle harden from what I see. It was very to the wire, but I mean you ended up 50-50 into Zens, really only losing to like apparently the most gaudiest of hands.
it's mainly like when they're at low life and they jam armor, you just have to hold your Snapdragons in case they jam it, so you can throw a sleep dart at them or remorseless, and that's just. If you can't get to that point in the game, you won't win.
There's a couple cards that we try to consider beforehand that were looking pretty good, but we just ran out of time to really properly test them. One of which was like Chains of Eminence, to just call chi, especially during one of those turn cycles where you send a bunch and they take damage thinking you have like a sleep dart. Or to punish them for trying to block if you have the ability to. There were just too many plays that chains could actually potentially perform, but we just ran out of time. Well, is there anything else you want to kind of add to that?
Not really. The week panned out pretty fine. I went 13-4 in CC.
Losing to Kano, Prism, Zen Zen.
Yep.
You think the breakdown on the matchup spread ended up being fairly accurate? Maybe like Zen goes down a little bit into like a 50-50,
I think
just with like the
Zen
more optimized builds.
Zen is at most 50-50. Yeah, I think it is slightly unfavored in my opinion. And Azalea is also slightly unfavored unless you see Buzzsaw at a hysterical time. And then I would consider it favored if you can hit that Buzzsaw.
I think
Apart from that,
I think adding the stone ended up making that probably a pretty even 50-50 because we could buy some time. But yeah, no, if you lower all that matchup and you just can't find your buzzsaw or just stuff does not line up, then yeah, it sucks. All right, well, hopefully you can get us some nice little upgrades to all the people that are trying to do nationals, or we can get them out to the public for the next couple weeks of nationals.